Okay, it's been a while since I've done one of these, and I'm super proud of one of my members. As a part of the Learn to Run Club, you get one monthly video where you can send me your mechanics, you running, and we have a virtual session, go over it together. Sometimes my job is really easy, sometimes it's more difficult, but it's so rewarding to interact with you guys. It doesn't happen very often, but it happened yesterday. I met with a member, and it was so cool to see that he required minimal assistance, if any. You'll see that just by following my Instagram, just by taking the tips and doing the training plan, that he was able to turn that into actual changes in his mechanics and do it on a treadmill, which is harder to master some of the techniques that I talk about, like the push with a tush. So I wanted to break down with you the criteria that I look at, that I teach in my courses to physical therapists, just to give you an idea. So let's take a look. So first I'll let it play through in normal speed, and then it'll break down to slow motion. But first kind of zoom out. I'm just looking at a big picture kind of view. What am I seeing as far as up and down motion, side to side? And remember, it's normal to have some up and down. We want some up and down, but we want it to be more down, the cushioning part than up. So I was thrown off a bit by his arms because typically, and this is why we do slow motion, with screens where I teach people just look at somebody, and after a while you can classify them based off of certain criteria, which I'll show you. But usually I say if your wrists are going above the elbows, that means somebody's going up and down, or they're axing instead of hand sawing. So I was thrown off a bit. And it wasn't until I broke it down into slow motion that you'll see he actually passes my efficiency criteria. So what I teach is position 1. This is ground 0, where I find the point where he's at what we call mid stance. Lowest point, both thighs are parallel, arms are parallel, his head's at his lowest point. And I try not to make too many judgments at this point, but I like to think if this is just a still shot. But if I were to bring this still shot to life, what would happen? Ideally, I would want someone to be not fall backwards, and if anything, have that slight fall forward, the ankle, the hinging forward. This tells me that their posture is appropriate. We talked about that 12:30 posture, not 1 o'clock, not 12 o'clock, not 1 o'clock, but 12:30. But if we were to bring this to life, you'd see it's pretty good, right? And I could show you examples of people kind of sitting back. But again, I try not to make too many judgments, but it gives me an idea that his posture is probably going to be on point. Okay, now I want to see when he is at his highest point, peak vertical. I look at the top of his head. And I go frame by frame. This is why you have to do slow motion, otherwise it jumps around. And I want to find when his head is at the highest point, right about there. And I'm looking there, highest point. And so my criteria is I want to see at that peak point, peak vertical, is his back toe, is it on the ground, still grounded? And you can see that it is, just barely touching. That's what I want. That means we're gliding, we're going horizontal and not jumping. This whole thing is we're just trying to take the jump out of running. So he passes that. He passes the gliding, not bounding, and meaning he's pushing with the tush, which was thrown off because you'll see here his position of his wrist is higher. And we'll talk later about what cue that we gave him, or I'll let you guys kind of decide. So that was the first one. And so now let's get back to it, and let's look at the next point. So the next point I look at is what's called IFF, initial foot flat. And this is where the foot is first flat, this lead foot. And why I do flat is that tells me when his weight is actually shifted through the foot. Not when it first touches, but when his weight is actually transferred to the foot. And then from here, this is where, get rid of some of these lines, this is where we look at overstriding. I call overstriding braking, and I'll talk all about that in the podcast to come this Friday. It's coming up. But overstriding is just another way of saying braking, is somebody slowing themselves down. And so from here, I want to see if I put a line right through the bottom bone, the tibia, and then a line right through the torso, if those two are parallel and tilted forward, boom, passes. That means he's gliding, he's not landing and loading in such a way that's going to slow him down. And for some of you, if you want or need extra help, I would love to be of service for you. My big picture, my dream is to have therapists and coaches across the country, across the world, that can work with you one-on-one to help you achieve your mechanics, because it's not always this easy, but he did an awesome job. And he's working on my 10K training program that I have. I have training programs, 5K through full, education, mechanics, you name it. But I just wanted to share with you guys how proud I am of him and how cool it was to see it actually transfer into real life. So I hope you enjoyed.